Well, it's the first week of March, and so what that means is it's time to travel again. So we are starting out exploring East Tennessee. And here's my partner, the lovely Tanya. So we're going to be exploring in the next couple of episodes East Tennessee before we start hitting the road to other places outside of here. We've taken about 7 weeks to get settled. I think that's plenty. And now we're going to find out what there is. This is like a brand new country to us because until about 7 weeks ago, we had never been to Tennessee. Had we, Tanya?
No.
Hadn't been here, knew nothing about it, still don't know anything about it. So come with us now as we discover this place together. We're touring Fort Loudoun, Tennessee. And what this is, the fort here that we're about to look at and go into is a recreation of a fort that was built by the British in 1756. And this was, at this area here, this was the far western frontier of what would later become the United States. So there was no Tennessee. It was, this was just frontier. This was kind of no man's land out here. South Carolina was the closest actual colony. This was built by the British along with their allies, the Cherokees, to fight the French. Because at this time, the French-Indian War was going on, and the French and the British were fighting over who would control what would later become the United States and all the colonies. So this is what it was. And there were about 300 total people that either lived right here within the fort or nearby. And these were the British soldiers and their family. Well, everything was going along just ducky between the Cherokee and the British for a while. They were fighting against the French. I'm not sure what was in it for the Cherokee, but they didn't like the French very well. So, or the other Indians that had allied themselves with the French. So everything went okay, and this was built in 1756, and then everything started to fall apart over the next 3.5 years or so, and the Cherokee laid siege to this place, decided that there were all sorts of treachery going back and forth where the Cherokee killed the British killed the Cherokee, and it finally ended with the British surrendering and going away. So that was this was the far edge of the frontier. That's the whole point of this thing. It's a very complicated and long history, but we're not going to go. So this fort itself right here is not the original. It's a recreation of the original fort, which is further out there in the water, under the water. When under the Tennessee Valley Authority Dam project, when Tellico Lake was formed out here, the original fort was submerged, but they did pick up, a lot of artifacts and archaeological pieces so that they would keep them for posterity, and they also had the original plans of the original fort. So this recreation of the fort is supposedly very much true to scale. And here it looks like some of the bunkhouses here, Tanya.
2 soldiers to our left and a family in the fort.
Yes, this is really amazing. So these guys, they were here with their families, the soldiers, but the soldiers slept here and the family's in a corner? I think it's the way I read it. So it's a bit odd, but this is where they were. Obviously not the exact bunks.
That looks pretty.
So this was all in between 1756 and 1760 when the fort was finally surrendered and then abandoned. They had a hard time here getting provisions. The whole point was that the fort, because it was the furthest most outpost of the colonies, it was supposed to be self-sufficient, but it never ever worked out that way. They were just too far away. They couldn't grow enough product to sustain themselves. And so what they did, they counted on the Cherokee to trade with. The Cherokee knew what they were doing, and then the Cherokee would sell them pigs and cattle, and so they, at different times, they would butcher animals in here, and so they would have enough food to sustain them. Yeah. So, as I mentioned before, there was so much treachery between the Cherokee and the British, even though they were allies against the French. There was so much back and forth, I mean, of them killing each other. And the Cherokee Nation, they were very proud people. And if any of their warriors got killed in some way, their blood law required that it was an eye for an eye, and so they had to have retribution. So, and sometimes it would happen much later. It wouldn't happen immediately after some insult to them. It happened even toward the very end of the fort here, Tanya, when the British surrendered. They said, "Okay, that's great. Here's the deal." The Cherokee said, "You're free to go at a certain time. We'll even have some of our warriors escort you out of here. And we ask is that you keep the gunpowder and the 10 cannons you have here and keep them here so that we can use them." British said, "Sure, that's great." So the next day, they and their women, and they head out into the wilderness, heading back to South Carolina, heading east. And the next morning, the British wake up after camping, and their families and the Cherokees are gone. And instead, they were ambushed, and there were some of them ran away, some of them were captured. I think maybe 30 were killed altogether, and as a big surprise to the British. Apparently, the Cherokee were upset because the British didn't hold up their end of the bargain either, and had buried a lot of the gunpowder and some of the cannons. So that didn't make the Cherokee very happy. So it was not a very happy ending to this relationship. Well, today we're off on another exciting East Tennessee adventure, and this time we're heading to Townsend, Tennessee, and population 358. So we're pretty excited about that, and the main reason we're going to Townsend is because it is the gateway to the Great Smoky Mountains and the Great Smoky Mountain Heritage Park or Village.
Yes, that's what it is.
That's what it is, and so that's where we're going. So enjoy yourself as we ride through East Tennessee. So we're here outside the Great Smoky Mountain Heritage Center and Village. So we're about ready to go in now. Just to give you a little bit of background about this area, according to a couple of different sources I have, one says that there were archaeological remains of Native Americans that were here about 4,000 years ago. Another source says 10,000 years ago. But anyway, Native Americans have been here for a long time, or had been here, I should say. The Cherokee came about 1600, so I'm going to have to do a little bit more research. I'm not sure exactly where they came from before they came here. By the 1700s, toward the end of the 1700s, the Cherokee were pretty much all gone. They had either left voluntarily or were forced out by the settlers that came in. So after going through the museum portion and gift shop of the Heritage Center, we're taking a walk around the grounds itself. Sequoyah Birthplace Museum. And the interesting visit in there, didn't we, Tanya?
We certainly did.
Yeah, and which were named after Sequoyah. He was a Cherokee. His mother was Cherokee. His father was white, a white trader who abandoned them as soon after he was born. He was born in 1776, so several years, about 16 years or so after the fall of. He was just an interesting guy. The primary thing that he's famous for is the development of the Cherokee written language.
Yeah.
And the museum goes through his life and the struggles he had to develop the language. It was just an amazing thing. And he is honored in Statuary Hall in Congress. And I had no idea. And
Neither did I.
because each state has the chance to have two people from their that are famous in their state in there, and actually he's from, even though he was born here in Tennessee, it's Oklahoma that sponsored his statue in Statuary Hall. On the grounds here at the Sequoyah Birthplace Museum is this burial mound, and what it is, it's not an ancient burial mound, but it contains the remains of 191 Cherokees that were their remains were recovered from the area where the lake then inundated in 1979, and so all of those members of the Cherokee tribe are buried in the mound here behind this stone display. And it shows the 7 different tribes or clans of the Cherokees: the Wolf Clan, Deer Clan, Bird Clan, Wild Potato Clan, Long Hair Clan, Blue Clan, and the Paint Clan. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time where we explore more of East Tennessee. Bye-bye.